Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel, I'm for Classic and welcome to Doom the Dark Ages. So I'm trying to run this game on the RX 6700 XT just to understand how this game performs. Keep in mind that the Doom the Dark Ages, it is highly sponsored by Nvidia. It is a title that has forced RTGI, which means that you need to have ray tracing to actually run the game. And I've decided to start on and with my recommended settings. If you play at 1080p and you want to achieve a very stable 60 frames per second experience, I would recommend you to go with 1080p median with FSR on its quality mode. So essentially, as you know, it's essentially upscaling from 720p to 1080p using FSR. Alright, and using the median settings. By using these settings, you can expect a very stable experience above 60. I'm gonna try the first level, so I'm not entirely sure how it will run, but I decided to use this section as a reference for all my settings that I decided to try out, since it packs a lot of action, and as far as I do understand, action is what really triggers mostly the frame rate in this game. And since it's raining and there is reflections all over the place and debris and some physics going on, I think it's actually a very nice segment to play. But obviously, I'm assuming that there will be probably more demanding places inside this game in other levels. So that's why I decided to go with median with FSR quality, and despite the 1% lows are very good, I decided to use this as a kind of for you to have a margin in case you find more demanding moments of the game. So this is using ID Tech 8. Alright, and yeah, it's essentially that. Alright, I think it's very playable, and one thing for you to have an idea, since it is using ID Tech, did I say ID Tech 5? I mean ID Tech 8. Since it is using ID Tech 8, and despite it is using Vulkan, this game pre-compiles shaders the first time you enter the game, and then after each load of each levels, and there is no visible stutter going on with this game, which is very good news, since we are kind of, I don't know, I think we are getting used to seeing stuttering and frame times in games, since most of the games have issues, especially games with third-party engines like Unreal or Unity. But in this case, with ID Tech 8, I don't see any stutter. The only moments I saw a stutter or two, it was on the first cutscene. Every time there was a very quick turn or pan of the camera, I could saw like a little blip on the frame time. But aside from those initial cutscenes, and let me tell you that it was packing a lot of action and stuff going on, apart from that, there is no visible stuttering in here, so it's a very smooth and silky experience, and so I do recommend. Alright, of course, if you have this card. Now, of course, I also tried different settings, and to be very quick, on the left I have 1080p high with FSR on its quality mode. To be honest, from what I've tried, I got 60 frames per second pretty much all the time, and with the 1% low above than 60. But again, I'm not really sure how the game will perform throughout the rest of the game, so if you have a VRAM screen, possibly it will be okay. Same can be said with 1080p high without any upscaling, but in this case you can actually see the game dropping below than 60. But again, if you have a VRR screen, you should be fine. As for 1080p maximum quality, essentially it's ultra high, but I do feel that the graphical settings are exactly the same as the high. But instead of using TAA native, I'm using FSR native, which drops pretty much in between 3 to 5 frames per second compared to the high settings. So probably the VRR screen might actually do it anyway. So moving on to 1440p, I do recommend again median settings with FSR on balanced mode. Alright, So by using this, you can expect an experience above than 60 frames per second. But by the end of this test, I saw one, of course, this with recording, okay? I saw 1% low of 57, so there might be small drops here and there depending on the action that it is happening. So if you have a VRR screen, it should be pretty fine in that sense. But yeah, if you don't, you can expect a drop here and there depending on the action. And you can expect a frame rate above than 60, since this moment I have a lot of action, a lot of stuff going on. And it still bundles above than 60, and every time there is less enemies on screen, it is just fine. Okay, it usually runs above than 70, but again, I can't really promise you that other levels will run like this. So I don't have too much time to waste in here. I think I will just move on to other settings at 1440p. And for this case, and in case you find very big performance issues, probably going with 1440p low on its performance mode of FSR should do the trick. You should expect a frame rate very good, above than 60. But in case you have a VRR screen and you want to force it a little bit higher, you can also try out 1440p high with FSR on its quality mode. With FSR native or without any resolution scaling, I got frame rates under than 30 frames per second on some occasions. That's why you are not actually seeing 1440p without any upscaling or at maximum settings. So for 4K, my recommendation it is for you to go with low settings, and while using FSR on its Ultra Performance mode. In fact, this is essentially upscaling from 720p to 4K. It's, well, too much aggressive, and it is also low settings, which is the minimum you can go with. But the performance that you have, it will be above than 60. Alright, so I think it's in case you have a 4K screen, this is the settings that I would go in case I would want to play Doom: The Dark Ages. So one thing before moving on to my last setting that I did try it out, I want to talk to you about graphical settings. In my opinion, all the graphical settings looks pretty much the same. There is some visible differences in between low to medium, in my opinion, and this is mostly because I saw comparisons online. I saw Digital Foundry videos, I saw Game GPU website, which also have a graphics comparison in between settings, and so I could tell the differences in between low, medium and high. But I mean, the biggest difference is mostly from low to medium, where low actually doesn't have half of the reflections of medium, but still it still packs reflections. But at medium settings you get most of the reflections, and you grab the graphical core of the game. One of the other things that I've noticed is that the low settings have worse shadows than medium, and when I say worse, I'm not saying that they suck or anything. No, they are okay, and this game doesn't have that much shadows. It's not the focus of this game. And when going on to medium, I could notice a revamp on the shadows and the reflections. But overall, of course, there is much more of other differences, like volumetric quality, particles and stuff like that. But honestly, while playing, the only thing I really notice is just a slightly bit difference on the shadows and really the reflections. As for the difference in between medium and high, honestly, I couldn't tell. I know that there is a difference in shadow quality. It is more crisper at high settings, but I know that because again I saw comparisons online. Apart from that, I wasn't really able to tell too much of a difference in between medium and high. So both settings still looks pretty good in my opinion. It's just that difference in reflections and shadows that makes it more visible, but it's still a very respectable setting for you to play in case you want to play it. Medium settings, I would say that it's a perfect balance in between graphics quality and frame rate. These lately have been kind of the thing. As for the high settings, you get slightly less performance, but honestly also the difference in quality it's not really a big deal. So we are looking to our last setting, which is 4K median settings with FSR on its performance mode. So it's essentially upscaling from 1080p to 4K while using FSR. And I don't think that the VRR screen can save this setting. I only decided to leave this setting in here because it's still a playable setting. But I don't think that people that play Doom the Dark Ages will want to play at 40 frames per second or 30. They will want to play at 60 and probably even 120, which is something that I usually don't care about in this channel. But honestly, 40 frames per second, 45, when you can simply drop settings and enjoy a good 60, I would definitely take the low settings with FSR on Ultra Performance instead of using median, even with FSR Performance, and have 40 frames per second. Okay, so like I said, I decided to leave this setting in here just because, but my recommendation for 4K, it is really to play at low with FSR on its Ultra Performance. So I think that's all that I want to talk about Doom the Dark Ages. Hope you enjoyed the video. In case you have any questions, just leave on the comment section of the video. And with this, thank you a lot for watching, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.